my part 10 of my ongoing series. But first, a quick introduction about myself. My name is Jay. My full name is Vijay BR. I've been, coding for a long time, and of course, I've been teaching since 2012. I have a Microsoft award from, MVP award from 2014, and I am certified in, Azure and data fundamentals, which you can see there. And as always, I have my personal website there and GitHub account. Make a note of it, all the code, anything, you can go ahead and find that there. And today, now we have been going through, I always mention this in every session. Each session is being planned as a connecting series, with the fundamentals. Each topic builds on the topic which is coming next, right? And then it connects with what came before. So the idea is to slowly reach a point where we start building some applications. So at this stage, if you go with all the sequences right now till 9, I've given you like an introduction to the programming basics of JavaScript. And now it is time for us to build on top of that foundational knowledge. And I've also spent at least 2 sessions talking a lot about using AI as well. So hopefully those of you who have missed it, you'll go back and check the recordings in your student dashboard and so on. Now it is time for us to take the next leap from only looking at the fundamentals of JavaScript and look at fundamental JavaScript with frameworks. Now that is what I want to go about discussing today. The frameworks, what they do, and what are the common frameworks. Now, as always, I have demo projects for you. I know at least 2 demo projects today, and of course today is going to be a little bit of theory because I need to put this information in you, so you will see the demo at the end of the session. And of course, once we get past this essential theory concepts, from next session onwards, it's completely, as I always do, multiple, demos with covering different aspects of, especially Node.js and React JS, and there are a lot of additional topics that I do as a developer. Now that's going to come in future sessions. But today, yes, you'll have to sit down with me a little bit, listen to some information, hopefully have your pen and paper, like I always say, make notes and everything. Right then. So what are we talking about here? What exactly is the framework? Now, before we come to it, as always, I have a one sheet document updated for every session with information, example code and everything. Let me quickly share that to you in the chat window. Now, remember, the Zoom chat doesn't always stay on. So you want to make sure that you take this file before the Zoom session ends. So I'm sending the file right now. Okay, so this is the revised document for today's class, right? So even if you have an older document, you still want to go ahead and download that. And again, it won't be there when the Zoom session ends. So please go ahead and download a copy of it. And I'm going to open that file right now just to quickly walk you through it so you know what to expect and why that file is so important. Now, there you go. Now, first thing is, when you look at the document, you'll notice that we are learning JavaScript fundamentals. So I have an entire repository with dozens of projects, including today's session projects. All those things are in this repository, and we've already covered GitHub on multiple sessions, not only in this series, but from last year as well. So you already know about GitHub. And obviously there are a lot of other information, like what are the courses, like if you are thinking of going deep, that information is also here. Now, skipping past, obviously I had a lot of YouTube videos and stuff. You'll check that in the link.
Sorry, Professor,
Next.
can you enlarge just expand
Oh,
the
yes,
font
sir.
size of,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Yes, sir. So now today's session, this is the one I'm talking about. As always, I put a quick summary for you. And the main thing is the demo projects for today is also there in the link. Right now, we'll be seeing those 2 demo projects in action. But more importantly, if you scroll down, you'll see all the things we have discussed. Like last session, we talked about AI. The previous session, we talked about essential of ES6. So there you go. This is not just about today. It also has everything till now. So it's like a quick summary of all the things we've discussed till session number 10. So let's get back to the PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay. So that's about the one sheet document. Please download it before the session ends. I'll remind you once again at the end of the session, in case some of the students had come in late, I'll send it again before the end of the session, right then. So now that we have taken care of that preamble, let's look at what frameworks really mean. So let's go ahead and open up my favorite paint software. I always like to use the paint software when explaining things. Now, what happens is, so you have been discussing with me learning the essentials of JavaScript programming. Now, coding alone does not make a software. Like for example, I'll take my own example. Now, I have information about software development in my head. However, if I'm going to teach you, I also need to have other things to be able to teach you. I need to have a reasonable grasp of English, right? I need to be able to speak in a way that you understand. I should be able to present things. I should be able to multitask. Like when I'm talking to you, I'm looking at you. I'm giving some examples, expressions. I'm managing files here. Things like that. So it's not just the knowledge of coding that makes you something, but it's also a lot of other things. So similarly, so far we have looked at JavaScript, but only JavaScript will not really help you build software. I mean, at the end of the day, the goal of any kind of programming learning, whether it is JavaScript or C Sharp, which is my personal favorite, or something like Python, when you learn these programming languages, simply learning the language itself doesn't actually help you. You should be able to apply that skill to build software which people can use, right? That's what makes you go from a programmer to a software developer. Now, the thing is, when you look at examples, technologies like, say, .NET and so on, they are, designed and managed by corporations like Microsoft. They control every aspect of .NET and C Sharp. But with JavaScript, what happens is, JavaScript is not exactly managed or maintained by a company. So it does, it has that wild spirit to it. So that is where, to put in some kind of organization, to be able to put all the pieces together, we ended up with what we called as frameworks. Now, this is true for any programming language, but of course, this is a session on JavaScript, so we are going to stick to that. So what frameworks do is they give you all the things you need, like an ecosystem, like all the different parts come together to make a car or something. So the frameworks, they help you put together different pieces so you can build something that will be useful for you. So that is what frameworks do. So they essentially give you like a sandbox. They give you like a supporting structure so that you can, on top of that, you can make some assumptions and build some stuff. Now let's try to understand how this works with an imaginary scenario before I show you the real demo. So let me take this here again. Let me just wipe the slate clean here, right? And I'm going to try to, yeah, there you go. I was wondering why this is so small. There we go. All right. Now, suppose, like for example, this week I'm helping a client build a very simple software. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to build like a university, like a learning management system, like a hobby project. So what does that contain? So on one end, you have obviously the front end. So that would be a web app, right? So that's the front end. That is what, your students will see, the professors will see, their login and things like that. Now, to this front end web app, we are going to have what is called as a authentication server. Now, any website, any university website or learning management website, it has to have a facility for you to log in, register an account, reset password, different kind of what do you say, roles. Like for example, student will have certain privileges, they can log in, look at assignments, submit assignments, stuff like that. Whereas a professor will have different privileges, because they'll be able to look at all the students assignments, they'll be able to upload assignments, they'll be able to add new courses, edit marks, things like that. So different users have different privileges. So for that, we need an authentication server. Next, we also need another server. We're going to call this an API that will be used to store data. Now, data can be data about students, data about professors, data about assignments, data about courses. So all these things, evaluation. So all that data has to come through some kind of API. Now, when we talk about data, so of course, we need to have some way to connect to the database. So when we talk about authentication, we need to have some kind of security things to be incorporated, like encryption and so on, hashing, stuff like that. And obviously, when you are building an API, you may have not just one API, you may have multiple APIs. You could have one API for students and another API for other communities and so on. So again, that also becomes a second database. And then at the end of the day, once you have all these things working, they need to be able to talk to each other. There must be a method to communicate with different components of your project, right? And ultimately, and when you're developing this, you need to have libraries, packages, dependencies. There must be coding conventions. There must be testing systems. There must be automation for deployment, right? At the end of the day, when your software is completely built, you want to go ahead and deploy all that. You deploy your web app, you deploy your authentication server, you deploy your API. So what is happening here? So many different pieces of the machine have to come together. So there must be some convention, there must be some standard, there must be some rules, right? Like for example, take this Zoom session for example. So how does it work? Like every time a session is designed, you're all students, you get an email, you know the schedule, you get the time. There's usually a poster or something with my face on it, with a title on it, and there's a student dashboard where you can see if you missed a session, then you can go back and watch the videos, and then you know the time at which start. There's a coordinate, like for example, Dr. Khanbiro is today the coordinating. The other day, Dr. Walsin was coordinating, and I'm here. I have the presentation, I have the revision document. So there's a system, right? For everything that happens, there is a system. Now that is what a framework is. It gives you that structure so that you can take your JavaScript programming and build some kind of a software, right? So please keep that in mind. Now, it's not like you cannot build things without a framework. You can, right? It's like when you want to have pizza, right? Sure, if you want to, you can spend a lot of time and money and equipment and then make your own pizza. Sure, it's not impossible, but most of the time it's better if you just, get pizza from a pizza shop and then focus on your life. Okay. Similarly, frameworks make your life easy. Like how if you want to make pizza, it's better if you just eat the pizza and move on with your life and do something that is much more important than spending your time making the pizza yourself. So similarly, frameworks help you with ready-made systems to build software, and that is something you'll see. Not today you'll just see a demo, but from the future sessions I'll start showing you how to build some cool apps and API servers. I have a lot of ideas for you guys. So anyway, so coming back, if I keep talking about it, I'll talk about it forever. I love frameworks. So let me stop myself. Let me come back to the PowerPoint. Hopefully you got the idea what I'm saying. Okay, frameworks, they put together systems so that you can build software, you can test software, debug software, deploy software, different kind of software, front end, back end, authentication server, databases, anything you want. All right then. So let's come back quickly. Let's get back to the slide here. So right then. So as I explained with my wild examples. So that's what frameworks are. Frameworks, they help you, like I said, development faster. They provide you tools and libraries. They also help you improve your skill set, right? Like when there are rules and regulations, you can better implement your skills. And obviously you start with simple software. And then as the project becomes complex and complex and complex, you can still build it, you can still manage it. Like, right now we are building this project for a client. We are just two developers, but already there is so much complication. But thanks to frameworks, we are able to work, even though we are in different countries and stuff like that. So that's what is about framework. Now, what about JavaScript? What is the recommended framework? Now, when it comes to JavaScript, okay, we have what is called as, Node.js. Right? That is the foundation on which all these other frameworks are built. So what exactly is this Node.js? So Node.js is like a engine. That is the word that they use. That's the word I also use as well. They call it runtime. I prefer to use the word engine. But anyway, so it's like an engine that powers all the other activities that you do. Like, for example, it allows you to do server-side development. Now, I've mentioned this before as well. Whenever you're building a project, you always have two things, right? On one end, you have the backend things, stuff like API, JSON, databases, authentication. Now, these are all things that fall under back end. Now, what do we call about front end then? So front end, you have stuff like mobile apps, React JS apps, Vue JS apps, Angular JS apps, all these things, they are front end development. So Node.js, it gives you, it's like an engine, it's like a platform, it's a runtime. It allows you to use this engine, which has some standard conventions, to build not only the back end, but also front end, right? That's what Node.js really does. And it's always being improved and developed and stuff like that. Like every few years, a new version comes. Like right now, the standard one is like 18, but I think the next standard one is 22 and so on. So there you go. They keep improving it. They keep making it faster. And that is really what Node.js is. And we'll see it today. We'll see Node.js in action today. And as they're saying here, you use it for both front end and backend as well, like web server and APIs. Right then. So now next thing is it has all these features. Now we're not going to go too deep into it because a lot of these words are very high level programming things. No, it really doesn't matter. I just put it there so that when you are opening the PDF and so on, it has a lot of words like asynchronous, single threaded, V8 engine. Yeah, we'll not worry about that right now. It's okay. We can just get past this, but just know that all these things, as we start building projects, like whenever there is an asynchronous call to the database, I will then jump in and go in depth about it. But right now, let's keep this here and move on to the next thing. So what are the things that we can build in Node.js? The best thing we can build with Node.js is, of course, back and web APIs. Now, that is something which we are going to do. Now, please understand here that we do use Node.js everywhere, both front end and back end. But when people usually talk about Node.js, it's almost always about back end. But at the end of the day, you end up using the Node.js runtime engine for both front end and back end. So just keep that in mind. So it's not like a strict line like, hey, Node.js is only back end. It's not like that. For example, we use React JS to build front end. It makes use of the same things that we use in the back end as well. So it's not like a strict line like, okay, Node.js is only back end, nothing really front end, nothing like it. Just think of it as a full stack thing. Node.js is used both front end and back ends. But yeah, so there you go, right? We use it to build APIs, microservices, streaming solutions for video and all that, and obviously server-side rendering. Now, what is server-side rendering? I'm just going to quickly mention that. So what happens is, let me just get my drawing board again, right? So most of the time, what happens is when you have front end, okay, like something like React JS, something which we'll see today, the rendering, when we say rendering means when are you showing the stuff? Okay, where do you show the website, the tables, the content, the list, the buttons, all those things? So that is called rendering, okay? Majority of the time, the rendering is done on the front end. When I say front end, I'm talking about your mobile app. I'm talking about your browser. You might be using Google Chrome when you go to a website, any website like Amazon or something, or when you came to this workshop, you clicked on some link, right? So those things are front end. They're usually built with React or Vue.js and so on, right? Now that is front end, and the rendering is happening this side, okay, the front end side. However, there are a lot of applications where the rendering happens on the back end. Usually back-end rendering doesn't happen often, but there are technologies available. For example, the most popular one is Next.js. We will also be looking at Next.js in one of our sessions in the future. So Next.js is very popular for providing rendering from the server side. That's what it's called, server side rendering, which means that is like a pure backend solution that is also doing front end type of activity. So that's what that means. So let's get back to my PowerPoint here then. As I mentioned, today it's a lot of knowledge thing, folks, not too much hands-on today, but we will get to that. Like before we can do practicals, we have to go through some theory. That's what today's session is. Let's keep going then. Now, if we have to getting started with Node.js, no, I'm not going to do that today. Again, I'm leaving that on the slide here for your friends. I will be showing you how to set up your Node.js project, how to build APIs. That is coming up, okay? But this is just for your information. So obviously, first we are going to install Node.js. I'll be showing how to do that in the next session, right? And then how to create a new Node.js application. There are some basic commands that we can use. Now there is something called npm. Now that is very important. So let's quickly go. Okay. This is good for you. Like, when you watch this today, you go and do some research yourself. Like I've shown you how to use AI and all that, correct? So what is this npm? So important. Now what happens is, see, npm is Node Package Manager, right? Now the good thing about software development is, a lot of times, not a lot of times, most of the time, the common problems are resolved or solved by somebody else already. The best example is, say I want to do like login on my website. I want to do registering a user on my website. Now, yes, I can build like the pizza thing, right? I can build my own login system. I can build my own authentication system. Nobody is stopping me from doing that. Okay. But login, registration, token management, these things are standard. Every website has it. And there are a lot of security protocols because, if you build a wrong, defective authentication system, that can create a lot of problems for you. So we don't want that. So what happens is, so if we go to npm, if you are trying to build some authentication, somebody else might have already built an authentication library. Like for example, I'll just go here and I'll say authentication. I'll just search for it, right? And you'll see that there are so many companies, so many people who have built authentication library. For example, here there is a library. Like if I go here, sort by most downloaded this month. Okay, I see here there's a library here. Yeah, there you go, collection of token providers. So there are all these ready to use libraries. There's a Google Auth library. Again, there you go. 59 lakh downloads, right? 5 million, I think that means in US. In India, it's 59 lakhs, right? So that's what I'm talking about. So if you are trying to do authentication, instead of building your own authentication, you go online, go to npm, get the library designed for it, and then attach that library to your project. I'll show you how to add npm packages to your project in the next session. Okay, so this is the beauty of npm. And again, this is made possible because of the framework, because of the Node.js runtime engine, because they're all standardized. You have all these ready to use libraries that are available. So anything you want to do, like for example, if you want to work with databases, then for example, MongoDB. So you go here, see if there's a MongoDB library. There it is, right? Use the MongoDB library to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. So like this, anything you can think of, there is an npm package ready to use it, develop things faster. Okay, so that's what the npm Node Package Manager is all about. We will look at how to use it in the future sessions. Let's come back to our PowerPoint. So there you go. Next, now that's all I want to talk about Node.js, right? Because Node.js, as I said, we will be using it to build web APIs. We'll be using it to build backend servers and so on. So that is one half of it. Okay. At the same time, building backend alone is not going to help you too much. You should also know how to build front end things. So now when it comes to front end, we do have many options. So let's go into that a little bit. Let me once again bring up my drawing sheet here. Let's erase this. I'm just going to get some water. It is summer in India now. Our summer started about 2 weeks ago. It's very hot, guys. Very hot. Okay, all right. Right then. So Node.js, yes, primarily we'll be using that. I'll be showing you how to build web APIs, how to test web APIs. We have software like Postman, Swagger. I'll be teaching you all those things, one by one in future sessions. Meanwhile, that's the front end, back end part. What about front end? What are the different frameworks? What are the different technologies we have? Let's go to them. Now, obviously, the most popular front end framework is going to be React. Okay. Now React is the one which I'll be spending a lot of time. Like today, when I show you the demo, I'll show you one backend project and I'll be showing you one React.js project. I'll also show you, the project structure, how it works, some explanation. We'll do that. Right. So now React.js is the, like very, very popular framework. Okay. So then along with this, another framework that is also very popular is Vue.js. Okay. Another one is Angular.js. And I think recently, like in the last 3 4 years, another framework that is kind of picking up speed and people are using it is Svelte. Okay, now these are all strict front end frameworks. Like what it means is these are strictly rendering, okay, on the front end. So whatever is happening, it is happening in your browser. Like if you're using Google Chrome and when you go to a website, everything is happening on your browser. Okay, so these guys, what they do is at the end of the day, all of these frameworks, what they do is you will have an API. Okay, now the API, what it does is it gives you what are called as endpoints. Okay, and I'll show you some endpoints today. Okay, so it has these endpoints and these front end web apps. Okay, front end web apps. Now these can be React, it can be Vue.js or Svelte, any one of those things. So what they do is they will connect, they will connect to these endpoints, and then they will send data and they will get data. So that is happening constantly. Like a simple example is, like right now, let me just show you. I'm going to go ahead and go to say Amazon.in. Let me do that, right? Like when I go to Amazon.in, now I'll open what is called as developer tools. Now I have shown this to you guys in earlier sessions. So if you go to developer tools, you'll see here now, anytime I'll go to network, right? And I'm going to just click on the Amazon button. Look at that. So you see this all on the right side, a lot of stuff is happening. Okay, that is all the communication that is going on the one on the left side, the left side here. Let me just get my marker. So the left side here, this will be the front end. And then all the connections happening here, that is going to be, the back end. So there's always continuous communication happening between the front end, which is your web app. Now we don't know what technology Amazon might be using. They might be using React, they might be using something else. But at the end of the day, they would be using some kind of framework. And then that framework, the web app will constantly talk to the web APIs built by Amazon to get all the information. And then here again, whenever I search for something, so let's say I search for gaming console or something. Again, as you see, as I'm typing, you'll see that there are things moving on the right side. So again, that is that again communication. So whatever I'm typing, that keeps getting sent to Amazon, and then the Amazon web API in the back end will send a response. And even when I press enter, again, there's a communication happening from the front end to the back end, the word I search for, and then based on that word, some data response is coming back. So again, we'll look at a quick demo of the web API at the end of the session. So hopefully that gave you some idea about, what is the role played by Node.js and what is the role played by, the front ends frameworks and so on. Now here, in my series of sessions and in future sessions, we will strictly focus on Node.js and Express.js. That's like a, that's actually like the framework. Node.js is the like the engine, the runtime, and Express.js is the actual framework on top of it on the back end. So we'll be looking at Express.js as time goes in our future sessions. Now, in the front end, there are many options, as I mentioned, but in our classes, I will be focusing on React.js. Okay, why? Why not Angular? Why not Svelte or something else? There's really no specific reason for it. Like I do a lot of tutoring. Yes, I do a lot of tutoring, and a lot of times, when students come to me and we finished a course in JavaScript, and then I ask them what they want to learn. They usually say React most of the time, because that's what, they're applying for a job. They spoke with some friends, or they know somebody who's working in a company, or if they're university, they're trying to do internship. Then usually it's all about, what the market wants, what the industry wants. Right? Like, for example, in this series of sessions, when I started this, I had no plans to include AI, in the session, but because AI has become so predominant, it's become part of our life now. So I had no choice, but as the time is going, as the situation is evolving, I had to evolve as well. So AI became very much a part of this entire series, and we ended up doing dedicated sessions on AI. On 1 or 2 sessions, it was entirely about AI. So similarly, the reason I'm picking React.js is because that's what my students ask for. That is what is used by a lot of people. So that is the simple reason. It's not like React.js is good and something else like Angular is bad. No, no, nothing like that. If you feel like once I show you some React.js demos and so on like that, nothing is stopping you from trying out other frameworks as well. But for me, I use this because I have so many projects on React.js already. I have experience discussing it. So I chose React. Okay, that's a simple reason. That is my personal preference. So what about, let's talk a little bit about React, some little bit of history, some concepts and so on. So React.js, again, it's a JavaScript library. There is some confusion, library framework, again, there's no strict line here. It's not like something can only be a library, something can only be a framework. Now, for me personally, React.js is both a library and a framework. Now, library, what is a library? As we saw earlier, NPM packages, that is one library. A library helps you do one thing. For example, let's say you're trying to encrypt a password. Okay, so you find some library online which does the encryption for you. So all it does is that one thing. It does that encryption. So that is library, one purpose, single purpose, or a collection of purposes all pointing towards a single thing. Now that would become a library, like that encryption library. So React.js originally was about, DOM manipulation. That's what it is. It has this virtual DOM, which gives you a very fast and easy way to manipulate DOM. DOM is nothing but HTML elements. That's what React is. So it's really started as a library with that one purpose. But then React became so big. Now you have an entire collection of people building packages to work with React. So when you have a library and then there are a lot of other libraries being built to work with this library, that becomes an ecosystem. So that is when React is a library, but it also becomes like a framework. Now, of course, it is developed and maintained by Facebook. I mean, of course, Facebook doesn't own React. They are the ones who invented it and all that, but it is open source. So that's really a good thing. Next, it uses what is called as reusable UI components. Now, obviously reusable UI components, we'll see it in action as the sessions progress. It simply means that, let's say you have a component, React is all about components, where you're showing a list of names. Now, if you have a component that shows a list of names, then you can reuse it to show a list of toys. You can reuse that component to show a list of places. So that's what it means. Reusable UI component means when you find, like, in different parts of the website, you are doing the same thing, then once you build something, you can go ahead and keep reusing that component again and again in different places. Now, why do we do that? Because when you reuse something, you save time and you have less errors because you already spent so much time testing it, making it work. So when you use something that is already working in another place, you're actually making your software better. So that's what reusable means. It's like when you have a very good friend in your life. Okay, so if you have a good friend and that friend is always nice to you, always dependable, and tomorrow another problem happens and the same friend again comes to help you, because that friend has already helped you in the past, now you have complete trust in that person. So it's like a reusable thing. Like it doesn't mean you're reusing your friend. I'm just trying to say that yes, that's one way of looking at reusability. Okay, and then again, React.js has this virtual DOM thing. We'll talk about that when we look at the when you start building projects in future sessions. And it has this syntax called JSX, which is like a mix of JavaScript and HTML. So that makes it makes it easy to play around with data. Like HTML, it doesn't really manipulate data. So whenever you want to manipulate data, you have to use JavaScript. Now, what JSX does is it allows you to combine these two things, which are not supposed to be together. You can actually combine them together. So you get that power, you get that flexibility, use JavaScript and HTML together, right? That's what JSX is all about. And obviously, you build interactive websites with React.js, which simply means your website actually does what you say. Like Amazon website, when earlier when I went there, I searched something. It as I'm doing something, it gives me a response. So that's what it means by interactive UIs. So again, what are the main features? Like React does these things. What are the key features? Now, for me, the thing that I like about React.js is really about how it has a way to update information. Okay, so what it does is React. Let me just again bring up the PowerPoint, the drawing board here. Now, this is actually kind of important. I mean, everything is important. I mean, this is also important. So what happens here is, see, you have the rendering, your website or your mobile app, and then you have changes happening in the background, right? So let's say you are building like a clock, and right now let's say the time is 1 a.m. Now time doesn't stop still. So if you imagine time in the back end, every 10 seconds, let's say a message is coming to your front end that, hey, 10 seconds have passed. So then what happens? It's 1 minute, it's 1 hour. Let's say it's 1 minute. Yeah, 1 minute. So what happens? 0 0 becomes 0 1. So the moment 1 minute that information has changed, you should change here from 0 to 1. And after 1 minute, that 1 should go away and then 2 should take its place. So this is what is called. So as the data is changing, right? As the data is changing, React will automatically update the data in the front end. So that is what we mean by two-way binding. Very, very, and it's not like it was impossible to do it before. It's just how easy it is to do this two-way data binding. And that's one of the things I really like about React. And another thing, of course, is that ecosystem, right? I mean, as I mentioned, React is a library, but it is so popular. There are so many libraries that are being built and maintained for React. A simple example is there's something called React Router and another one called Redux, which is really state management. We'll talk about state management in future sessions. Again, routing we'll talk about in future sessions. So what it does is when you want to implement a new feature, again, like the node packages I talked about. So React is so popular when you're trying to implement something new, there is already a ready to use, somebody has built a library to help you do that. Okay, so for example, routing simply means you go from one page to another page. It seems simple enough, but making it happen itself can be tricky. So no problem. There is a library called React Router. Add the React Router library from npm. Now remember I told you Node.js, Express.js mainly for backend, but the ecosystem is available on the front end as well. So just like how you add npm packages on backend, you go ahead, add React Router to your React.js project, and now you have a very good working routing system, right? Same thing with Redux, state management. Now React already has very good state management facilities. State management means when something changes, okay, that has to get pushed to the back end, and something changes in the back, that has to get updated in the front. As we saw, imagine you're building a clock. When the time changes, the display should change. And let's say you click on that clock, and then when you click on it, let's say the clock has to go back in time or something. Now that information will be sent to the backend as well. So that's what it really all about, state management. Now you can do state management directly on React, but when you are building a big project, it becomes difficult to manage all the states. So again, there's a library for that. So that is another really cool feature about React JS. A lot of things that you want already is being built by the community. Now, I always talk about this, right? Like, for example, sometimes, students from the workshops, they come to my GitHub, they ask questions, and I reply to them. So that's like a community. Now, even right now, you meet, you have chat, you ask questions. Sometimes somebody in the Zoom session asks a question. Maybe you have the same question, but you are not able to ask for some reason. But because you're part of the community, you're getting that knowledge anyway. So similarly, when you are working with React, so many new libraries are being constantly developed, added, and maintained. So if you invest your time in React JS and you become like a React.js developer, right? And that makes you part of that React.js developer community. So that's another thing that is really, really good about React.js. No, oh, sorry. What was that? Sorry. Uh, I don't know what happened there. Sorry, guys. I pressed something by accident. Right. Okay. So what are the different places where you can use React.js? Okay. So I'll quickly go through standard cases. React.js is ultimately a front-end library. So you use it to build websites, any kind of website. Now we'll see one website today. We'll see one backend. We'll see one front end today. That's one major example. When you're trying to build websites, any kind of websites, you may be building a complex e-commerce website, you can use React.js. You're building a simple website like a birthday website or a college website or a personal portfolio. Again, simple things also you can do with React.js. And the good thing is, people have taken React.js and they have done extra things. For example, they've even taken React.js and developed this another library, which has become like another framework called React Native, which helps you build mobile apps. So both Android and iPhone is possible. So in case you end up, if you after this session, you like what you see, and then you're like, okay, maybe you'll invest your time, invest your energy to become a React.js developer, then it is possible for you to not only build websites, you can also go ahead and build mobile apps using the same React.js knowledge. Okay, so that's what React Native is. There are long-term implications of becoming a React JS developer. Okay, but ultimately React JS is used for building websites, all type of websites, and mobile apps, again, all type of mobile apps. Okay, so before I think we're almost at the end. Before we take any questions, let me quickly go ahead and show you a project demos of both Node.js, like backend, and of course one simple React.js project, show you how the files look, run it and everything. Let's do that. And remember, I've already given you the links in that one sheet document. In another 10-20 minutes, the session is going to end. So please remember to download the one sheet document. So yeah, let's go ahead and open some projects. I have 2 projects for you today. And next session, I'll be showing you how to build these things. Today, I'm just going to show you how to run the project. So let's go ahead and do that. So I have on my desktop, there we go. Okay, now I can't make this bigger, so I'm really sorry. But when you go to the link, you'll see there's one project called Node.js Hello World 2. Okay, that is the backend project. And you'll see there's another link I've given you. It is called Batman Say Hello. I'm a bit of a Batman fan, so I tend to use Batman words in my projects. But anyway, so two projects. First, let's look at the backend. So I'll go inside. Now, I already shown you that I use VS Code, so this should be familiar to most of you. And I have to drink water again. Again, folks, I'm so sorry. I'll tell you, these days, since summer started, I must be drinking like at least 6 liters of water. Uh, God, today I guess, very hot, very hot. And you know what? Next week I'm traveling to conduct training for a company. It is a coastal city. It's a coastal city right next to the beach. I don't know how I'll manage. I'm really, oh my God. Anyway, all right. Enough of my personal stories. Okay, so there you go. I have the backend project here, right? Okay, so running it very simple. Now, there's a file, very important file. I'm sorry, I can't zoom in, so you'll have to take my word for it. There's a file called package.json, and we'll go deep into it in the next session. So here there is something called npm start. Now remember, npm is the node package manager, and all this is part of the framework, right? So first step, npm install, right? I'm gonna just go ahead and try that. So let me just write it for you a little bit bigger. npm. Don't worry, I'll repeat this again in the next session when we build a new project. But if you're trying on your own, when this is getting recorded and you want to try. So first step, what you want to do is npm install. Okay, npm is the same thing I talked about before, that website npm, right? Then the next step is npm start. So let's do that. So I'm going to go here, npm start. Okay. Now, obviously, I don't expect any errors. I've tested this project. I'm sure you guys know, before every session, I test things, I write things, I build things, all for you guys. So you know that already. Now, you see all these things here? These are all URLs. Again, I can't make it bigger, but let's open one of them. So I'm going to go here. I see that there is a endpoint. Now, 8082. I click on this. And let's open this one. There you go. And what I want to do is I want to say /Batman. Now this I can make it bigger. So let's go. Now, do you see that? What is happening? Now this is an example of an endpoint. So the endpoint is localhost 8082/Batman. And then when I reach this endpoint, I am getting some JSON data. We'll talk more about JSON data in future sessions. So the JSON data is like this. It has a curly braces, and inside the curly braces, you have fields and values. Okay, so you have the key and values. This is the key, this is the value, key, value. Look at the colon, start noticing these things. Look at the colon. Left side is key, right side is value. We'll go deep into this in future sessions, but that's what we are expecting from a web API. Okay, but at the same time, we can also do rendering in the backend. So let's try that. So if I go back to this one, you'll see here that I have 8083, which is different from 8082. Let's not forget that. So I'll open this too, and now here is a website. Okay, again running on Node.js, right? So there you go. And this is a crocodile. I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys. I'm from the city called Mysore. We have a crocodile lake. There are some 100 crocodiles out there. They're always sleeping and eating. Sometimes if you go in a boat, they will chase you, but they won't do anything to you. So this is one of those crocodiles. Okay, so but the main thing is, this is Bootstrap. This is running on the Node.js. This is running on the backend. So I'm just want to show you guys the things that you can do with NodeJS. And when we start building it, like, you take this code and you try to run it, I think you're going to enjoy it. This is something I promised you when I started this almost like 10 months ago, right? I'm going to put the foundations first. And then once the foundations are in place, we are going to build projects. Now the foundations are there. It is now trying to take that knowledge and build some things. All right, guys. Okay. So that's about the back end. Now, before I go away, let me show you, if you want to take questions, let me show you React.js, okay? So let's come back. There we go, React.js, right? The project is Batman Says Hello. And I'm gonna open this in VS Code, just like last time. And I'll go here to terminal. And just like last time, npm install, that is the same. As I mentioned, backend, frontend, they both use Node. So steps are usually the same. Npm install. I'm sorry, I can't make that bigger. Yeah, front-end things, they'll take a few seconds to load. There's not much we can do. It's done. Oh, thank God it's done fast. Okay, so then npm start. I was about to say a new story, but anyway, it finished fast. Okay. All right, npm start. And now there you go. So perfect. Yes. Okay, now this is still loading, it's still loading. Hold on. It's loading. There you go. Perfect. There you go. Now this is a very, very simple React.js website. Now it looks very simple, but when we start building this, you'll see the complexities. Now see what happens. Now I have a button here. Let me zoom in. Right? I have a button here called load a joke. So what happens is this software is very simple. Every time you click on a button, it gives you a new joke. It may not be funny, but it will give you a joke. Okay, now see what happens when I click on it. There, you see mountains aren't just funny, they are hilarious. It's okay, it's an okay joke. Now see what happens every time I click. It shows some animation, it talks to the back end and then gets a new joke and it keeps doing it. And you see how in the bottom, every time I click on this, the counter keeps increasing. 10, 11, 12. Do you see that? That is two-way data binding. All the things we talked about. This is the beauty. This is the nice thing about React.js. It allows you to build these interactive websites, all kind of websites. Okay, now how does the code look, right? Even though this looks so simple, it's still a lot of things. Look at this. This is the source folder. You have the code here. Look at this. Okay, now the best part about this is, this is where, all the things we did, like JavaScript stuff, functions, variables, return values, arrays, if, else, all that will now come together. That is why we did all this, to apply our knowledge to building something simple. You start by building something simple, slowly, your skill improves, and very soon you're building complex projects. But of course, I'm going to have to focus on the simple stuff because this is a fundamental journey. This is a fundamentals, basics, JavaScript journey. But yes, hopefully, I'll show you a lot of fundamental projects and you will take that knowledge and you'll become an advanced developer. That should be the ultimate goal after all. But you must start somewhere. That is where the fundamentals comes into the picture. All right, then. So this is how it looks. Okay, there is more stuff coming your way in future sessions. Oh, what about the backend? I didn't show the code of that. Hold on. So again, backend has a similar structure. So, this has the index file here. It looks like this. This has the node server file. This one has a little bit more code. Backend usually has more things to talk about. A lot of port numbers, slashes, things like that. But it looks odd in the beginning, but you'll get used to it. Okay, so there you go, folks. That is what I wanted to do today. I promised to you that I'll give you a quick introduction. I promised to you that I'll give you a couple of project demos. I have done that. I showed you a Node.js project. I showed you a React.js project. And once again, before I go away, I'm going to upload that file because I see a lot of students have joined in the last, after we started. So let me send that one-sheet document. Okay, please download it, because when the session ends in 8 minutes, that file will go away. So please go ahead and download it right now. It has all the important links, not only for today, but also for every session I have done till now in this series. Okay. All right then. Professor Dr. Kambiro. So I am done from my end, Professor. So I'm sure any questions are there, I can answer them. So yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Professor Sima, Professor Cha.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate
Jay. So you can just call me Jay, sir. It's easy to
your
pronounce.
lecture.
Yes, sir.
Is it over, or you have something to say?
I'll do that at the end, Dr. Kambiro. After any questions are there, I'll answer it. And then when I wrap up, I'll finish it off with these things. Yes, sir.
Okay. Hello, everybody. You can ask any questions with regarding to the today's live class. JavaScript basics, especially how we use Java in developing softwares, webs. If you have any question, you can even ask in the chat section. But before students write the question, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Yes. My question is, what factors we prioritize when we evaluating the stability of JavaScript framework for a specific project? Let me even send the question for you.
Yes, sir.
Chat section can easily
Okay.
understand the question. Yeah, this
Right.
is my question.
Okay. Folks, so see, this is something you will be doing almost every day of development. Not only when it comes to choosing a framework, every aspect of software development goes through some kind of evaluation. And what we do is, whoever is involved, we bring in our own perspective and look at different things, and then eventually make a decision. Like, let's say here, suppose we are all in a team. Right now I look on the Zoom call, there are about 35 plus students. So let's say we are all together trying to make a decision. Like, let's say we have decided to build a website and we want to make a call. Hey, is it going to be React JS? Is it going to be Angular? Or is it going to be Vue.js or Svelte or something else entirely? The best way to make the decision would be look at what we already have. I think for me, at least, the most important thing is, what about the total experience? For me, that is the most easiest way to decide what framework to choose. So if you have 35 people in a team, and out of that, let's say 30 developers have already worked on at least 2 or 1 big React.js projects. So in that case, it is an easy decision to make. You already have so many people who have spent maybe months. Some of them might have started only recently. Some of them might have been coding in React.js for 10 plus years. So always when you're making a call on what framework to use, the first parameter is to look at the total experience. How many projects you've worked on. The next thing is, look at how many community contributions are happening to that framework, and what about the libraries available for that framework. What are the standard things like login? Okay, you go to the React ecosystem, you want to do some Google login, you want to do some Facebook login in your project. There are ready-made Facebook libraries available. There are ready-made Google login libraries available. What about working with databases? Yes, there are ready-made libraries available for that. And what about training material? Now again, let's say in your team you have 35 people and 10 of them are new. Like 25 people have already worked on things. The remaining 10 people, now you can't expect senior developers to sit and teach all remaining people. It doesn't work that way. I mean, maybe it should, but nobody has the time for it. So do you have training material available? Do you have websites available? Do you have courses available? What about YouTube tutorials? What about blog posts? These are the kind of things you want to look at, and then eventually decide, okay, Based on this, we have 25 developers, who are already working on React.js. Plus, there is so much learning material available. Plus, there are so many libraries available. Plus, React.js is really old. It's been there for more than, I think, 15 plus years. So, it's mature. A lot of issues, a lot of bugs have been resolved. So, based on these factors, Dr. Kanbiro, I would say, okay, we are going to go with React.js. But again, I made a big assumption that a lot of people are already into React. But we can also take an alternate scenario where you have a team of 35 people. Again, let's say this group session itself, and only 10 people have used React.js, and 25 people have spent the last 10 years on Angular. In that case, again, same argument. You already have so many people in Angular, stick to Angular. So that is how I would go about evaluating a specific framework, Professor.
Thank you, Professor
Yes, sir.
Jay.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
your answer.
Yes,
Now
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
we will proceed to second person K. I mean says you can open your audio. Just unmute your audio and just please ask your question.
Oh, thank you. That was a very great presentation. However, I was very late, and so I just need briefly explain the functions of Node.js and React.js function, an utility for JavaScript programming with sample of code and output. Just briefly.
Right, Jules. So what I can do for you is as a summary of the session, I've
Yeah,
already put in the PDF. Let me just send it to you in the chat again. So if you could
I already
download
download.
the
I
document.
already download the PDF. Yes, I
Okay,
download
yes,
okay,
already.
yeah.
But
you can
just
see his
briefly to
question. I
explain.
think his question is expressed in the chat section. He actually expressed his question. You can refer to it.
Dr. Kanpiro, there is no way I can brief that big question in 2 minutes, Professor. So, I would request the student to watch the recording. That's my answer. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And besides,
I will check with the PDF file. I will check with the PDF file.
that's what I would
No
say.
problem.
That's what I would request. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yes,
We have
yes, yes. It's okay. It's
another
okay. It's okay.
hand.
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ulfimi is there. Unmute your audio and just bring your question.
Thank you very much, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, my professor. Thank you for excellent lecture. My question is, what is the applicability or the versatility of the JavaScript? For example, can nations who do not use Latin alphabets, who are probably using Arabic alphabets or non-Latin alphabets. For example, the Russians are not using Latin alphabets, and the Arab countries are not using Latin alphabets. This JavaScript, will it be useful to people or to industries in such countries? That's my question.
Well, that is an easy answer because I don't know much about any of the the countries you mentioned, but in India, within India we have like some 15 major languages, and they all have like let's say we have the government websites of and like, for example, my state has a language called Kannada, and my neighboring state has a language called Telugu and Tamil. Now these are nothing to do with English, right? But still the government websites work just fine, and many of them use React.js, and they display the local language absolutely fine. Same thing with the Telugu language. They'll work just fine. Same thing with the Tamil language. They work just fine. So to answer your question, absolutely, the language display technology, that problem was solved many, many years ago. So whatever language you're using in whichever country you are, whether it is React JS or even just basic JavaScript, that problem is not a problem at all. Though that is automatically solved for you. There's no need for any extra effort from your end as a developer. Absolutely. Easy peasy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hope that answers
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, yes, sir.
I think we have no more hands. Oh, there
there's
is
one small question,
person
Dr. Conbiro. I can just answer
asking,
that. That can be the final question.
Yeah, Collison. Please
Yes.
unmute your microphone, unmute your audio, and just bring your question.
Dr. Conbiro, there is one quick question on the chat, sir. Let me just answer that. So January, so we will be looking at virtual DOM in the next section, though. So I'll be going to deep into it. But to give you a quick answer today, what happens is, so React maintains, so if this is your web page, React gives you, the developer, a handle kind of thing. That is what we call the virtual DOM. And then inside, all the other DOM things are linked to this virtual DOM. So you manipulate the virtual DOM, and this virtual DOM goes ahead and manipulates everything else. So that's really how React goes ahead and helps you manage an entire website, where you, instead of individually handling DOM elements, you let the virtual DOM do it for you. Think of it like an agent. Like when you're traveling, there are so many things, bookings, hotels, shipping, travel, buses, cars, and all that. You can do that yourself, or you get a travel agent, and the travel agent manages everything else, so you can focus on your vacation. So that's really the concept virtual DOM uses. And as I mentioned, we will go deep into building some stuff. Like today, I showed you a React project. I showed you a backend project. I'll be building that live in the future sessions, and you'll see for yourself how the virtual DOM works. And I can take that last question, Dr. Kanbiro, the one which was unmuted or something. Yes, sir.
Let us allow for Collison to ask his question. Please open your microphone and.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I've got a question, but before this question, I just wanted to give a narrative from the previous online lessons that we learned previously, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. We were told on one of the lessons on AI, the presenter indicated that if you have got a piece of writing, be it a project, a thesis, or whatever you would have been given as an assignment, you can then load it into AI for it to super refine or correct some of the things that it thinks would have been deemed necessary. But now my question on this issue to do with the JavaScript, having designed say a website, will it be necessary to load into AI just to have an appreciation of exactly what you would have done? Or is there a umbilical cord between JavaScript and the AI?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Mainly because this is what me and majority of developers are doing for the last couple of years. Like what we do is, I'll show you right now. I can show you right now live. See, right now, let's say I have this project, right? I have this project you saw earlier. This is a project which generates a new code every time you click a button. Now, what I can do is, suppose I want to do something else with it, I can literally go here. I have the premium AI subscription, as I talked about in the previous class. I can literally ask AI right now in front of you, and I can say, how I can't make that bigger, so sorry. So I'm telling you what I'm typing. I can ask AI, how can I make this current file better? Give me some recommendations. And you know what? Almost every time I do this, the AI always has so many things, so many improvements that I would have never thought of despite being in the coding life for more than 25 years. So to answer your question, yes, if you are building a project, if you're starting new, take help with AI from day one itself. If you already have an existing project, please go ahead. I encourage you to use AI to improve it. And the main thing is, I always tell my students, remember, AI is like you're going on a road trip in a car. You should always be in the driver's seat. That's what matters. You should know where you're going. Where you're going, you're supposed to take help from the AI, not let the AI sit in the driving seat and you become the partner. So as long as you don't let that happen, using AI is always beneficial. That's my answer, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
We have another hand, another
Sure, sure, sir. Sure.
person.
Yes, sir.
Columbus, please open your microphone, on your audio, and bring your question.
Thank you. I hope you are hearing me.
I can.
Yeah, I am a bit perplexed because
Yes.
AI seems to be more clever than a human being. Because now we are relying too much on knowledge from AI other than knowledge from human beings. And I've been told there are some universities that don't allow students to use AI, and some places they are allowing AI to work. So why are we having the controversy? That's one. Then the other thing is JavaScript is a programming language, and Python is also a programming language. And it's been proved that Python is far more than JavaScript. So where are we? What are we going to choose? Are these programming languages specific to countries, or there is a specific language that we are supposed to use? Because many of us are now going to AI, trying to learn to make sure we update ourselves and even become experts in AI. But you will reach a place and someone will tell you, I want my program to be in you use the R or use C++ or use C. And so if you don't have any language, if you don't have any program, if you don't have any knowledge about it, it becomes a bit very complicated. So which one is universal that can help us to work on these programs that we are having?
Right. A lot of questions there. I'm going to try to combine them into a single answer. See, if you are new, if you are starting fresh, or if you are making a decision, okay, which language you want to invest your time, right? That was a crux of the questions you asked. Then my answer is simple. Go with the language where you feel you can, make a living a few years from now. I'll take my own example. Now, I started with C#, right? And that was way back in 2012. And I chose C# because one, I was naturally good at it. And I felt like C# will still be there after 10, 20 years. Now, after 10, 20 years, C# is still making me a lot of money. So I made a good choice. So similarly, you are talking to me and I'm telling you from experience that A lot of the world, websites, web apps, mobiles, all these things are being built using JavaScript. Now, I don't think these websites and mobile things and all that will disappear in another 10 years. So, sure, you invest in JavaScript today, then you'll still have employment from JavaScript 10 years from now. So that's one way to look at it. So if you invest your money and time in JavaScript, learning JavaScript, you are in safe hands. You also mentioned Python. Now, Python and JavaScript, they are complementary. It's not like one is good, one is bad. Not really. There are many projects where I have worked on. I've used Python for some things, and I've used JavaScript for other things. Sometimes I use them together. But I am not going to go too much into Python, mainly because I don't have any plans to be part of the AI industry, like AI development. I use AI, but I'm not in the development side of it. You know, like it's like, I don't know how to build a house, but I live in a house. So similarly, I want to use AI. I don't want to develop AI. I don't want to work with data. So if you're working with data, you are working with AI, like developing AI, then you should definitely learn Python. But that depends. So is that what you want to do 10 years from now? Is that what you want to do 5 years from now? Is that what you want to do 1 year from now? So ultimately, the decision comes down to what you want to do in terms of future employment. So, but if you're just starting, then there's nothing stopping you from starting in JavaScript. Like, for example, I started in C#, but today I teach, I work on C#, I work on JavaScript, I work on Python, I work on C++, sometimes I even work on Java. Okay, so really, pick one language, become good at it. It can be anything. And then once you have enough experience, it is so easy to learn other languages. So that is answer number one. Now, answer number two, yes, so much of coding, including my own, like for example, the project I showed you, one project, I built it by hand, but another project was completely built by AI. 90% was AI, only 10% is me. But it is how things are happening now. It's like for example, I told you next week I'm traveling for work for a client assignment. I'm going to take, in the olden days, we had to take a bus. But now in India, we have these express trains, which are so fast. I mean, they're a little expensive, but they are so fast. And now, before it used to take 12 hours to go from here to my client location. But now the train is so fast, it goes in 6 hours. So AI is like that. It is a new thing. People are using it. So now what I can do, I can still take the bus. It'll take 12 hours. Or I can pay a little extra, take the express train and go fast. And I'll save 6 hours. In that 6 hours, maybe I can do some work and make some money. Maybe I'll take a nice nap and I'll go for a walk on the beach. So that's what AI is, sir. AI is not going anywhere. People are using it. It is right, wrong, I don't know. But what I know is it saves time. And with that time that is saved, maybe we can do more. So that is my answer to you. I hope I answered both your questions.
Hello, Columbus. I hope you got under. There is no any hands more. There is no any hand more. I think the time to conclude our today's live class. I appreciate your time. Do you have any idea? Do you have anything to say?
Yes. Let me just wrap it up here, Dr. Conbiro. So, folks, as always, please understand that in the document I've given you, main thing is I have put all the links, but the important thing is I see some students, they come to my discussion forum, right? The link, there are links for the discussion forum. I see, some students, there are one or two students who come almost every week, ask questions, get answers. So that is already happening. So there is a discussion forum. Here you only get to see me once a while for 1 hour and then questions for 20 minutes. But discussion forum, I'm always there. So as you're practicing, please come, ask questions, get your answers. And as I mentioned, there are dozens of demo projects. And I have dozens of videos on my YouTube channel. So a lot of stuff is there for you to go beyond this session to become developers and learn more. And that is where I want to stop, Dr. Conbiro. Yes, sir. Thank you for letting me conclude. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Jay, for your interesting and insightful lecture today.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate everyone. Colson, do you have any question? Okay. Please bring it. Unmute your microphone. Colson.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
sir.
Okay.
Okay, one last question. Do you have a similar document, JavaScript for beginners? If so, then is it possible that you can give us on this platform? Because some of us, we are yet to learn this program.
Well, actually, let me just show you. So the document I shared with you in the chat, if you go to the very first page, the question you asked me is a very common question. So what I've done is, in the very first page, I have provided a link to a very, very good here, right here. I don't know if you can see it. This one. Do you see that? JavaScript algorithms, Dr. Kambiro, can you see that, sir? There you go. So this is a common question. So what I did was, in the very first page, point number 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, item number 4. This is one of the best courses I recommend. It has 300 chapters. And I promise you, it takes about 300 hours. You do this, nobody can stop you, because this is where I started. I'm not saying I'm unstoppable right now, but I know things that I did not know before. So yeah, you want to start somewhere, this is the place to start. And that link is there in that PDF I shared you. And of course, if you have any doubts, as I mentioned, my forum is open. The link is there again. Look at this. People come, ask questions, I answer them. So yeah, everything you need is there, sir.